If everybody will take your seat, please. Max. Thank you. Max, do you mind doing the prayer? If you're not a member of Appropriations, I ask if you don't mind step backwards just so we can count and make sure we have a quorum. Two, three, four, five, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, we do have a quorum. Representative Burns, do you mind leading us in invocation?
Join me for a prayer, please. Father, we're grateful for today. We're grateful for opportunities and challenges. Be with us now as we consider the business of our great state and make sure that we do the things that are pleasing in your sight. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Appreciate all you being here. Thank you, Chairman Burns. Our first bill will be House Bill 611. Representative Burchett, if you want to step up to the podium, you can take it. You can go from there. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The House Bill 611 is a bill that this committee has already passed, but as with any lawyer bill, if you get several lawyers involved, there's a question about how the words should be on the sheet of paper. So this is just a substitute that accomplishes the same exact thing. It's just reworded, and the House Bill 611, what it does is it requires that any settlement agreement or any proceeds from a settlement agreement shall be appropriated after June 1st, 2023 by the General Assembly. As you recall, we've had many settlements with the state of Georgia, and they've been appropriated or allocated outside, some of them, the appropriating power of the General Assembly. This would assure that, that those appropriating powers that are in the Constitution remain with the General Assembly going forward from June 1st, 2023 on into whenever the General Assembly takes action again. And that's the essence of the bill. Mr. Chairman, thanks again for working with me on this bill and helping me to make sure these words read correctly. And the parties that are interested in this are the General Assembly, of course, and then the AG's office. And there are currently some ongoing litigation settlement negotiations happening for a second round of opioids. If you recall, last year we had the first round of opioid settlements. This would, all the parties are in agreement that this language is the language that would best serve moving forward.
Thank you, Representative Burchett. Making sure that I'm correct, the parties involved in this bill are at peace with it. It would preserve settlements that are made before this date and would require anything in the future to come to the General Assembly. Is that correct?
That is correct. Currently, with the second round of opioid litigation, the time is of the essence, and the last round of opioid settlement, the General Assembly is taking no part in appropriating those funds. All those funds go directly to trusts, both regionally and state trusts that are appropriated outside of the General Assembly. What this bill, what we've been able to do is strike a deal with the parties involved to say that of the state portion that is coming to the state in these settlement agreements, in the settlement agreement moving forward in this second round, the state portion, 60% of this, 75% goes to the state. Of that 75%, 40% goes to a regional spend, which will go to a trust. That's the other remaining 60% the General Assembly will appropriate, and those parties involved, the AG, General Assembly, and the locals are all in accordance with this. After this, however, all dollars shall be appropriated by the General Assembly.
All right, thanks for your explanation. Chairman Beach.
If it's proper time, I'd like to make a motion.
It's proper.
All right, I'd like to make a motion HB 611 do pass.
There's a motion that HB 611 pass by substitute. I think it's LC 432837S. Is that the correct one, Representative Burchett?
Yes, sir.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We got one other bill on the calendar today, a little cleanup bill. It's going to be House Bill 19 by committee substitute. Speaker Burns was busy, so I think I'll present it for him. Glad you laughed.
Listen.
They're already reading it. House Bill 19, what you have before you, the green front, is the Senate Appropriations Committee substitute to House Bill 19. Let me just run you through it generally. We'll talk about a few of the specifics and see if you have any questions. This is the FY24 budget. Remember, it's a $32.4 billion proposal. It supports law and order. It protects our families, supports our children, and figuratively and literally gives them hope. The big picture, I think it's fair to say, is that the Senate version more closely reflects the governor's version than the House, but that's not to say we didn't pick up the nuggets of wisdom from the House where we could. Areas where we more closely reflect the governor's budget, we were able to replace funding pulled from Medicaid. We were able to replace and add to the reinsurance program supported by the governor at the Office of Commissioner of Insurance. We were able to return hope to 100% funding for students with a B average, which was a proposal by the governor, and we were able to support the governor's $2,000 raise for all state-funded employees. Let me walk you through a few of the details just in policy areas. In health, in Medicaid ABD, we restored utilization cost cuts. In ABD, low-income Medicaid and Peach Care, we allowed for the reimbursement of OTAs, that's occupational therapy assistants, and physical therapy assistants, providing services for Medicaid members receiving Children's Intervention Services, CIS, another abbreviation from Medicaid, and creating parity with our surrounding states. In the state health benefit plan, we shored up the state health benefit plan to a tune of $1 billion. We talked about this during the amended phase too. At DHS, we worked with our friends at DHS, DCH, and with the Office of Health Strategies to begin a plan to address a structural deficit at our child caring institutions in our state and allow for better placements and care for children with more federal support for foster care maintenance payments while funding the current cost of this deficit for a 6-month period. At DPH, we matched the House and actually doubled funds for reimbursement rates in the Babies Can't Wait program to help support early intervention for infants and toddlers with special needs. Also at DCH, we continued our support for hoteling and ending that practice with a $5 million add there. As of this minute, we have 14 children who are in state care who are sitting in an emergency room. That is not their best care. It's not the highest and best use of our funds. And we are going to continue to pound that point with our state contractors so that they can remove these children from an ER where they are not getting care to a place where they can get the care they need because their lives literally depend on it. At behavioral health, the Senate version supports over $40 million to address mental health staffing, facility needs, and others. And we held the line with the House on increases to our home and community-based service providers. And the Senate budget also funds now 500 now comp waivers, which was a position point championed by the senator from the 56th and the senator from the 40th in a bipartisan fashion, and was probably the one item that I received more letters on from you members than any other singular item. In education at the K-12 level, for the second year in a row, the Senate's version supports a position that allows for no austerity in the QBE formula, and teachers receive a $2,000 salary raise. This budget also makes significant progress towards screening of all children from kindergarten to 3rd grade for dyslexia. You'll remember, as the senator from the 42nd has told us many times, that we passed SB 48 with an end date for making sure we screened all children by 3rd grade by FY25. The Senate committee version you have before you now fully funds that measure 1 year early and supports dyslexia screening for all children from kindergarten to 3rd grade. The Senate version also provides not just support for the Council on Literacy, championed by the senator from the 4th, but operation funding and a directive to work pursuant to Senate Bill 211 and monies to support that endeavor at over $1 million. We believe that literacy is important. SB 48 and SB 211, we believe, dovetail to make sure we have an educated and competent workforce for all the jobs that the governor is so eloquently bringing to Georgia. At higher education, the Senate's budget returns to the governor's position, as I told you, supporting a 100% factor rate for prior year tuition for the HOPE grant and for the Hope Scholarships for public schools. At public libraries, the Senate version also supports another nickel raise to take the book allowance, as we commonly call it, to 70 cents per capita for a total of $7.7 million. The Senate's budget also recognizes that certain TCSG fields cost more, and it provides additional funds to TCSG to recognize the high cost of delivering CDL and nursing programs, which are both careers which are desperately needed and in demand. We funded the aviation side of that last year. The Senate's budget supports conservative budgeting as well by requesting our Board of Regents utilize carry forward funds to support their teaching formula and conserve valuable state dollars at a time of significant financial turmoil and uncertainty. We also expect continued discussions with the Governor's Office and the House concerning the funding of state buildings. There are a couple of planning adds in this budget, and we want to make sure that if we're adding planning dollars that we're able to support the buildings that would follow behind those planning dollar additions. In public safety, the Senate's committee version supports technological and data management upgrades at our courts. It supports a $6,000 increase for state troopers, Capitol Police, DNR Rangers, and our GBI folks. We weren't trying to single anyone out and make them seem more important than the others, but we want to recognize the hard work and the duties, increased duties we have placed on these individuals, particularly over the past 2 years. We were able to fund this by reducing our funding towards trooper schools. And it's logical and sincere in the reason we did this. We believe that keeping our experienced law enforcement matters, and there is a learning curve when we bring more troopers on. We don't get to create state dollars in this budget. So we were able to take a portion of the $11 million that we annually use to support trooper schools and use that for the pay raises. Now those pay raises, $11 million is not enough to cover everyone. So we did have to pick and choose, and we chose to focus on those whose job duties increased the most, we feel, over the past 2 years. The Senate version of the budget also funds a cold case unit at the GBI, various scientist positions for the crime labs, and bonds to improve the crime lab, the GBI crime lab in Macon, which we know has been championed by the senator from the 26th. In economic development, our state budget creates a program to improve natural gas access in rural communities, acknowledging because of the governor's incredible success on broadband, natural gas is becoming this generation's broadband issue. We used to talk about could we provide cell service to each community, then we talked about could we provide broadband to each community. Because of the extreme success of the governor and this body, we've almost done that, and natural gas is becoming the next titan of utilities that we're going to have to tackle. We also support our growing EV industry by transitioning certain unfilled positions at regional economic development projects that haven't been filled yet to other regional economic development projects in other areas of the state. At the Department of Ag, we funded the Department of Ag's need to enforce sole amendment rules. We also increased COLAs at Department of Natural Resources for game wardens, as I mentioned. And then back over to Ag, we supported funding for blueberry, citrus, and peach positions. There are other areas of the budget where we were able to add as well. Our statewide independent living council, they have a wait list of about 700 individuals. By moving and not funding certain positions that have not yet been filled, by pulling back those funds, we were able to clear the 700-person wait list at the statewide independent living council. We were also able to commit and make a commitment to reduce state liabilities by committing $5 million for a continued reduction of state workers' comp liabilities at DOAS. The Senate's budget also provides a one-time benefit of $26.75 million for eligible state retirees and recognizes that ERS COLAs are now being pre-funded by employer contributions. And we were able to increase funds to the Georgia Food Bank program, which has been championed by many, including the senator from the 44th. Last but certainly not least, one of the other items I want to point out is that the Senate version of the Senate committee version proposes that we recognize $11 million for transit in project areas outside of Atlanta. It's a novel idea. Our Commissioner of Department of Transportation has championed this. We send out DHS vehicles to move people for non-emergent reasons. We also have Department of Transportation vehicles that we use for non-emergent regions. We also do that through other various DHS agencies. The Department of Transportation has come up with a plan by looking at other models that's, I would call it Uber-esque in its essence, of saying, hey, if we're already running this vehicle there, why are we double track overing with another agency to do the same thing? Why did we not just try to grab two people with the same ride? And we've put $11 million towards that project outside of the metro area. Talk to you a lot about the ads. Well, where did we get these funds? We don't get to create dollars, and the Senate doesn't have its own printing press. And the credit for this goes to our staff. We have a staff of 8 at the Senate Budget Office. It's headed by Brent Churchwell, but there's more than that. You know Austin, Courtney, Lindsay, Martha Grace, Mary, Sonny, Caitlin, Carly and Noah, and then, of course, Miss Angela and Abby, who work directly in our office. They spent hours combing state budgets to figure out who'd already been hired, who had not been hired, where we could, what funds had been expended, what funds were surplus, to help create the dollars that you see to fund the projects that you specifically asked for you and your districts here. And I want to give them a round of applause and tell them thank you for all their work. And there's other areas that we had to find savings too. You know, we can't just find all the savings based upon positions not yet hired. So we didn't agree with a few house ads. We also were able to find some FMAP changes. The Senate going last is able to have the most updated information on FMAP, and we were able to create a few savings there. As I already told you, we trued up the dollars of hired and unfilled positions. We used conservative budgeting at our largest agencies and pointed them sometimes to other funds. We held the House's reduction at airport aid, and we provided the same percentage reduction for railroads. We pulled funds that were committed to the criminal data exchange program due to legislative changes in governance, and plan to put those back when that legislative change in governance is complete. We also reduced funds for program expenditures like the Georgia Coordinating Center, which now has run its time, and the Georgia Cyber Center, which made a commitment to us early on that after several years they would be able to support themselves on rents, and we're now going to move them to that part of their budget. As well as a reduction at Georgia Public Television based on testimony and current requests. We also reduced the testing budget. And why did we do that? Well, it's a recognition of this body's continued reduction of testing requirements on our students and teachers. And if we're going to reduce those requirements, then the budget should commiserately follow. The budget before you now is one that, again, I feel promotes safety for our state. It gives our students hope, the pun is intended. And it makes sure that our state is in a position to weather storms that may come over the next 12 or 24 months as we see those clouds that were gray get darker and darker on the horizon. I appreciate the governor and his insight and forethought into the plan and the conservative values that it represented before it ever even came to our body for consideration. Appreciate the staff at OPB who has been open to answer any questions that we've had in this process, and I know the hours and months of work that they've put in. And also want to commend and thank Christine Murdoch at House Budget Office and Chairman Matt Hatchett, who have been open to this process as we've ran as fast as we possibly could. You know that normally it takes 16 days for the Senate to work through our 8-committee process and make sure we've trued everything up. We have a little slogan we say, 2 weeks, 2 days. And that's how long it takes from the day the House hands it to us to the day we can roll it out in this committee. We were handed the budget on March 10th. That would mean March 26th would be the quickest we can do it. Because of your hard work and the hard work of our staff and our friends who've helped us along the way at OPB and the House Budget Office, we've been able to do that 5 days faster, or 33% faster than we've ever done it before. And again, that's a tribute to you, and it's a contribute to our staff who probably are just about functioning at the level of exhaustion. So thank you again for the letters you wrote. We've tried to work them in. I think you'll see them reflected. If you have specific project requests, I'm happy to talk to you about them offline, but I've seen many of you have already turned to the bonds and know what you're looking at to begin with. So if there are no further questions, I'll take a motion. Motion by Senator Dugan. Is there a second? Second by Senator Ginn. Is there any further discussion or questions? Okay. All those in favor of the Senate Appropriations Committee substitute to House Bill 19 as presented, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Thank you so much. Hope you all have a great afternoon.